Welcome dear students. This is the 9th video on practice problem for accounts of not-for-profit concerns. Today we will be solving sum number 6 on page number 117 of your government textbook. So let's read sum number 6. Question number 6. From the following particulars relating to Radha Krishna Charitable Hospital, Pune, prepare income and expenditure account for the year ending 31st March 2020 and balance sheet as on that date. Before we go ahead reading the question, I want you to look at this question. It is a third type of question wherein receipts and payment account is given, and then they have given us additional information in the form of a table wherein particulars is given, opening balance date is given, closing balance date is given, and some information is given. So let's begin with step number 1, that is identification. Before we begin reading receipts and payment account, let us recall the symbols. On the receipt side, we have income, which will be indicated with the symbol I, liability, which will be indicated with the symbol L, and there could be sale of asset. On the payment side, we will have expenditure, which will be indicated with the symbol E, and asset, which will be indicated with the symbol A. So let's begin step number 1, identification. On the receipt side, to balance brought down, cash balance is given. This is my opening cash balance. Opening cash balance is never considered. Next is subscription income, donation which is given for general, so income, interest in investments, income, proceeds from charity show, income. We now move on to the payment side. Medicines purchased, expense. General expenses, expense. Salaries, expense. Stationery, expense. Expenses on charity show, expense. Surgery and dispensary expenses, expense. Equipment, asset. Balance carried down. This is my closing balance of cash in hand and cash at bank. So the closing balance of cash in hand will be asset and cash at bank will also be asset. With this, students, we have completed step number 1, identification. We will begin with step number 2, reading the additional information and marking star in our receipts and payment. But before we go ahead, students, you can see there are 2 dates which is given to us. 1/4/2019 is nothing but my opening balance sheet. And as you are aware, opening balance sheet will only have one effect. 31st March 2020 is nothing but my closing balances for the year. Okay, so let's start reading and marking star. Subscription due. Due is nothing but outstanding. They have given me opening as well as closing. Subscription opening will be nothing but related to my previous year. And this is related to my current year. Outstanding income for the previous year and outstanding income for the current year. Next is subscription received in advance. Again, they have given me something related to subscription. So received in advance, this is my pre-received income. So pre-received income will again come as my prepaid income. That's pre-received income. And this rupees 150 is nothing but my pre-received income for next year. So if you see, students, I will have to mark 4 stars, which means I will prepare my subscription table. So let us mark star for subscription. So I will mark star for subscription. Adjustment number 3, stock of medicines. They have given me stock of medicines opening as well as closing. So let us mark star for medicines. So for medicines, I will mark 2 stars, one for opening and one for closing. Adjustment number 4, estimated value of equipment. Opening balances of equipment is given, so we have to mark star for equipment. Since opening balance for equipment is given, I will mark 1 star. Adjustment number 5, building. The opening value for building is given, and on the payment side, students, we know building is not given, which means we will add this to our assets. Adjustment number 6, capital fund. You know capital, we write it on the liability side. Next is number 7, 10% investment. On the payment side, students, we do not have any investments, which means we will have to add it on the asset side. But there is percentage given, which means we have to check whether it is an hidden adjustment. Okay, so while doing the adjustment, we will see if there is any hidden adjustment related to investment. Next is provide depreciation on equipment and on building. So I have to mark star for equipment and for building. I have building here itself, so I will mark star for building, and for equipment I will mark star. So on the payment side I have equipment, so I will mark star for equipment. With this, students, we have completed step number 2, reading our adjustments and marking star in our receipts and payment. Let's begin with step number 3, writing it in the inner and the outer column. Students, please make a note. The ones which are marked star will be written in the inner column, and the ones without star will be written in the outer column. So let's begin from the receipt side. To balance brought down, that's my opening cash balance, which we do not consider, so we will not write. Next is subscription. So on the income side, I'll write by subscriptions. There is a star, so I'll write it in the inner column, 52,000. Now students, we have already read the question and we know that we are supposed to write the subscription table. So let us write the subscription table. So it will be minus, minus, plus, plus, less outstanding related to my previous year, less pre-received income for my next year, add outstanding for current year, add pre-received income of my previous year. So this is the table that we will write it first. Next is donations. On the income side, I'll write by donations. Since there is no star, I'll write it in the outer column, 17,500. Next is interest in investments, rupees 10,000. Students, while reading the adjustments, we saw that there was an hidden adjustment given for investment. So let's have a look on the calculation. So they have given us 10% investment, amount is rupees 1 lakh, which means on 1 lakh we will calculate 10%. So 1 lakh 10% will be 10,000 rupees, which means interest on investment has to be rupees 10,000. Now here interest in investment is already given 10,000, which means we have already received interest on investment, which means it is not an hidden adjustment and we do not have to mark any star. There is no outstanding for interest in investment. So we will directly write it on the income side by interest in investments, in the outer column 10,000. Next is proceeds from charity show. Again on the income side, I'll write by proceeds from charity show. There is no star, so I'll write it in the outer column, 8,530. With this, students, we have completed receipt side. We will now begin from the payment side. By medicines purchased, there are 2 stars. So on the expenditure side, I'll write 2 medicines purchased, 2 stars. So I'll mark 2 stars and write the amount in the inner column, 41,000. Next is general expenses. Again on the expenditure side, I'll write 2 general expenses. No star, outer column 1050. Next is salaries. Again on the expenditure side, I'll write 2 salaries. In the outer column 23,500. Next is stationery. Again on the expenditure side, I'll write 2 stationery. No star, outer column 2,000. Next is expenses on charity show. Again on the expenditure side, I'll write 2 expenses on charity show. No star, outer column 550. Next is surgery and dispensary expenses. Again on the expenditure side. So I'll write 2 surgery and dispensary expense. No star, outer column. Next is equipments, which I'll write on the asset side. So equipments, there are 2 stars. So I'll mark 2 stars. I'll write it in the inner column, 10,000. Next is balance carried down. That's my closing balance of cash in hand and cash at bank, both on the asset side. So I'll copy the way it is. Cash in hand, inner column 960. Cash at bank, inner column 13,000. So 960 plus 13,000 will give me 13,960. With this, students, we have completed step number 3, writing it in the inner column and the outer column. We will now begin with step number 4, doing our additional information. But students, first we will do our opening balance sheet. And I hope you remember the 4 pointers of opening balance sheet. Opening balance sheet has only one effect. All assets and liabilities need to be added. Any kind of outstanding will be minus, and prepaid or pre-received will be plus. So let's begin the opening balance. Subscription due, that's the outstanding for previous year, 310. So for previous year outstanding, I'll just copy 310. You know it's previous year, so we do not have a second effect. Next is subscription received in advance. It's a pre-received of the previous year, that is 600 rupees. So on the subscription side, I have pre-received of previous year. So I'll just copy 600. Next is stock of medicines, 8,000 rupees. So on the medicines, I'll say add opening stock. It's an opening stock of medicine. So add opening stock, 8,000 rupees. 41,000 plus 8,000 will give me 49,000. I'll still write it in the inner column because there is only another star and only one effect because it's an opening stock. Next is estimated value of equipment, rupees 15,000. So I will have to have opening balances of equipment. So on the asset side, I'll say add opening value, which is 15,000 rupees. So 10,000 plus 15,000 will give me 25,000. I'll still write it in the inner column because there is another star. Next is building, 40,000 rupees. So on the asset side, I will add and there is a star. So on the asset side, I'll write building. I'll mark a star and write it in the inner column, 40,000. Next is capital fund, 1,70,940, which I'll write it on the liability side. So on the liability side, right on top, I will write capital and I'll write the amount in the inner column, 1,70,940. Next is 10% investment, which I need to add it on the asset side, and I know that there is no hidden adjustment for this. So I can write the amount directly in the outer column. So on the asset side, I will write 10% investment directly in the outer column, 1 lakh rupees. So with this, students, we have completed our opening balance sheet. We will now continue with the closing balances. So I have outstanding subscription for the current year 350. So on the subscription table, I have outstanding for current year. So I'll only do fill in the blank, that is 350 rupees. Now student, you know that this is related to current year. So this will have a second effect. It's an outstanding income. So outstanding income, second effect will be on the asset side. So on the asset side, I will write outstanding subscription for current year, which is 350 rupees. Next is subscription received in advance, rupees 150. This is a subscription that we have received in advance. So my first effect will be on the income side. I have pre-received income. So I will write it over here, 150 rupees. Now again, we will have a second effect because it is subscription received in advance. So my second effect will be on the liability side. So on the liability side, I will leave first few lines and then I will write subscription received in advance, 150 rupees. Now with this, students, you can see that we have completed our subscription table. So let us do the calculation. 52,000 minus 310 will give me 51,690. Then 51,690 minus 150, I'll get a balance of 51,540. Now with this amount, I will add 350. So I get the amount 51,890. 51,890 plus 600. So I get a total of 52,490. With this, students, we have completed our subscription table. Number 3, stock of medicine. Closing value is given 11,000. This is my closing stock of medicine. So let's do the first effect. So I have medicines. I'll say less closing stock, which is 11,000 rupees. So 49,000 minus 11,000 will give me 38,000 in the outer column. This is my first effect for closing stock of medicines. Second effect will be on the asset side. So on the asset side, I'll write down closing stock of medicine, 11,000 in the outer column. With this, students, we have completed with the table, but we still have some information given. So let's complete that. Provide depreciation on equipment rupees 1,900 and building rupees 1,500. So we will first do depreciation on equipment. Let's do the first effect. So on the equipment side, I'll say less dep 1,900. So 25,000 minus 1,900 will give me 23,100 in the outer column. This is my first effect for depreciation on equipment. Second effect for depreciation on equipment will be on the expenditure side. So on the expenditure side, I will write down 2 dep on equipment 1900 in the outer column. Next is depreciation on building rupees 1500. So let's do the effect, first effect. So I have building, I'll say less dep 1500. So 40,000 minus 1,500 will give me 38,500 in the outer column. This is my first effect for depreciation on building. Second effect for depreciation on building will be on the expenditure side. So on the expenditure side, I'll write 2 dep on building. In the outer column, 1,500. With this, students, we have completed step number 4, our balance sheet and our adjustment. We'll now begin with the last step, that is step number 5, closing the books of accounts. We will first close income and expenditure account. So first we will total the expenditure side. So when I total the expenditure side, I get a total of 72,700. Now I will total the income side. So when I total income side, I get a total of 88,520. Now I will follow ledger format. Bigger total to be written on both the sides. So I'll double underline first on both the side. Bigger total to be written on both the sides. So 88,520 will be written on both the sides. From the bigger total, I will minus the smaller total. So 88,520 minus 72,700. I get a balance of 15,820, which I will write on top. Now my income is more than expense. So when the income is more than expense, which means the concern has made a surplus. So I'll write 2 surplus carried down. In the bracket, I will write excess of income over expenditure. Now since the concern has made a surplus, so in capital I will add surplus, which is 15,820. So now I can total my capital 1,70,940 plus 15,820. I'll get a total of 1,86,760. Now I will total the liability side. So when I total liability side, I get a total of 1,86,910. Now in the same manner, I will total the asset side. So when I total the asset side, I get the same total as the liability, that is 1,86,910. With this, students, we have completed sum number 6, and I hope you have understood the sum.